This is David Leeper with WesternFreePress.com, and we're privileged tonight to have Congressman Ben Quayle from Arizona's 3rd Congressional District here to answer questions. Congressman, you talked tonight first about the dire straits that our budget is in. What approaches to managing the budget crisis do you think are most promising?
Well, when you look, we have to understand what the biggest drivers of our debt is, and those are the mandatory spending issues that we have with Medicare, with interest on our debt. So understanding what the problem is the first part of it, and then actually coming up with the solutions. Now, Paul Ryan, who's the chairman of the Budget Committee, is going to be coming out with a budget for fiscal year 2012 that starts to address these issues in a very serious manner, because we really don't have the luxury of kicking the can down the road anymore. Otherwise, we have a tidal wave of debt that's going to be basically overtake our whole economy.
And the Paul Ryan's roadmap's been out for some time. I've looked at it, a lot of people have. If we followed it, lock, stock, and barrel, would that solve our budget problem?
You know, it's a starting point, and you know, people can tweak it and work with it, but it's the best starting point I've seen. And I think that if we actually implement those reforms, that starts to bend that curve down and really takes care of our long-term problems, and we start to getting our budgets in order. But the biggest thing is that it deals with our entitlement issues, which are going to be the biggest drivers of our debt.
Well, one of the things you said tonight that was encouraging is you said there's a genuine cutting spirit that's taken over Congress, as opposed to what should we spend it on, it's where can we cut it. Do you believe that's genuine? Do you think it'll last?
Well, it's shocking to a lot of people in Washington, but it is genuine, and it's been ushered in. A lot of it is giving the fiscal conservatives who were already in the House, having 87 new members on the Republican side who were, a lot of them were pushed to run because of the fiscal issues. And we're there to provide that support and to be those voices to actually make sure that we go through with the various reductions in spending and the cuts that we need to make.
And you talked tonight about the recent CR, the $6 billion CR. There are a lot of conservatives that felt we should have held out for much, much more, that's only a pittance. You did vote yes. Could you explain why you thought that was the right vote?
Absolutely. First off, I just got to say that the Republican Party, we are all together. This is a tactical issue on disagreeing on where the tactics, how we should proceed further. My opinion is that I don't ever want to leave $6 billion in cuts on the table. Granted, in the grand scheme of things, it's very small. However, it really starts to get us going in the right direction. Now, I didn't want to have any of these short-term resolutions, but when we sent H.R. 1 to the Senate, they kicked it back and really have not done anything to try to work with the House. I don't think I could support any more short-term resolutions. We need to have the cuts that were in place in H.R. 1, send them back, and then so we can get this done so we can start to focus on the bigger issues for the budget of 2012.
And Michelle Bachmann had an initiative where she thought this CR could actually be used to remove the $105 billion embedded in the Obamacare bill. What did you think of that initiative? Apparently you did not agree with the initiative because she voted no on the CR, you voted yes.
Well, the reason that that initiative didn't belong and couldn't belong in the continuing resolution is because continuing resolution only deals with discretionary spending. Unfortunately, what Obamacare did was they made a lot of the discretionary spending that would have been handled by the appropriations process, which we could have done in the CR, that got changed with the bill into mandatory spending. And so we couldn't deal with it based on the House rules with the continuing resolution. Now, we are going to be dealing with that $105 billion over 10 years in a separate bill that we're going to be pushing through the House in the next few weeks.
And if that bill goes through, would that essentially take care of killing Obamacare?
There's a lot we have to do. We got rid of the 1099. We're going to be working with the Senate to try to come up with something that can pass both houses. We got rid of it in the House. They got a version out of the Senate. They're fairly similar. We should be getting that to the President's desk very soon. And there's other various issues. Look, Obamacare is just a travesty. And if you look at the number of companies and states all asking for waivers and getting them granted, why, if this is so great, would the federal government be granting these waivers if this is better and the best thing for all members of society? It's not. It needs to be repealed, and we're going to be working hard to defund the certain portions that we can.
When we go forward and begin to come up with some of these serious cuts, do you expect the Democrats to demagogue this issue and call, especially the freshman Republicans, anti-senior, anti-poor, anti-education, and so on?
These issues have always been demagogued. And it's unfortunate that we haven't had the ability to look beyond that and get our message to the American people that these are not drastic measures. These are just reforms that are going to save these programs from themselves, because they are not self-sustaining entities right now. And I think that what has had to happen is that we had to have a financial collapse like we had over the last few years, and seeing these mountains of debt that has been piled up with this administration and with previous administrations, to actually be able to shine the light on this issue and how we cannot wait any longer. Because if we do, it's $11–12 trillion a year if we continue to kick the can down the road.
Now, the charts you showed tonight on the tidal wave of debt, they really look scary, devastating. And you said they don't even include service on the debt. Is that correct?
Well, the one chart that I used where we saw where the spending was, that big, huge tidal wave, that did include.
It did.
It did include servicing. The other one where it broke out Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, that did not include the debt service.
And Fannie and Freddie, I understand, are completely off the books. Is that correct?
Well, we are working in terms of how to deal with the unwinding of Fannie and Freddie. Financial Services is really looking and taking a look at that and how we can reform our GSEs, because Fannie and Freddie was a really bad model that contributed to a lot of the problems that we faced with the housing meltdown, which led to the financial collapse.
Do your constituents still come to you hoping to find money for programs?
I told you, this is the difference in Washington. Now people will talk to you about not cutting their program as much as another program. So it's a totally different dynamic, and we all have to understand that we're going to have to do more with less, and we have to figure out what the proper role of the federal government. It's a small federal government. That's what we need to be working towards, and that's what we're going to try to accomplish, moving that ship into that direction.
And do you foresee significant inflation as a result of the Federal Reserve policies, QE2 and so on?
There are very big concerns from an inflationary standpoint, and it comes to a lot of things. We could have devastating inflation due to the fact that we have our bond rating downgraded. We could continue down this path of where we're continuing to mount up debt, and various foreign entities like China or Japan don't want to buy our debt. If we can't sell the treasury notes, that's going to have inflationary impact. These are the types of things that we need to be looking at. And it all comes back down to the main thing, is that we spend too much and we need to really rein that in. Because if we do that, then we could start to look at the inflationary pressures that could happen, but in the long term we can still see a more viable future.
Now, we ask this of all our congressmen that we interview, but if you could wave a magic wand and make something happen, one big important thing happen, what would that be?
In getting our entitlement reform through and making sure that we get that through so that those benefits are around for future generations, and that the amount of debt that is associated with those aren't going to be crippling the opportunities for future generations. Because if we don't make those reforms, that's exactly what it's going to do.
Well, Congressman, I want to thank you for this interview. You held an excellent session tonight, and we look forward to talking to you again. This is David Leeper with Congressman Ben Quayle for WesternFreePress.com.
Thank you very much.